What's going on, everybody? Alex Quin here, and you're listening to Hustle Inspires Hustle. On this episode, we have Luke Mickelson. He is the founder of Sleep and Heavenly Peace, a nonprofit that has built and delivered beds to over 250,000 children in need, ensuring that no kid sleeps on the floor in his town or any town. What started as a small project in his garage has grown into a global movement with 350 chapters across 4 countries. So, congratulations on that, Luke. Powered by a volunteered force, giving over 550,000 hours of community service. But Luke's journey wasn't an easy one. He walked away from a high paying career to follow his mission, facing challenges, scaling hurdles, and redefining what success truly means. On this episode, we dive into the moment that changed everything for Luke, the reality of child bedlessness, the key decisions that helped SHP grow, and the powerful impact of building a nonprofit that thrives on human connection. If you've ever wondered how to turn passion into purpose or how small actions could lead to life-changing impact, this episode is for you. Luke, what's up, man? Thanks for having us today, man.
Oh
This is
no, thanks
really, really,
thanks for
really
having me on,
cool.
brother.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's really important for us that you took time to speak to us today. We're really excited to hear about how this whole thing came together. Very impressive numbers. Um, and that we've never heard anything like it on here. So, we're
Wow.
happy to
Well,
be in your space today. Happy for you to be in our space as well.
awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here, and it's a great opportunity to share. It's not just my journey. It's thousands of volunteers across the country that have come together and have helped not just solve the pandemic, hidden pandemic, I call it, of child bedlessness. Not even a real word.
Yeah.
But it's a real problem, as well as is connecting communities together, and this is a way we can do that, through podcasts like yourselves and your listeners.
How'd you figure out that this was a problem?
Well, it's a great question. Back in 2012, I was what was called a young men's president in my church. I guess back east, people might call it a youth minister. Although I don't,
Mhm.
I tell people I'm not a youth minister, man. I'm just a farm kid from Idaho. But I loved working with the youth, right? And so I was put over the young men's program, which was their spiritual as well as the activity arm of the church that happened about every Wednesday night. And it was boys ages 12 to 17, 18.
Mhm.
And really the activity arm of the church was Boy Scouts, right? So I was kind of like the leader of the Boy Scouts, and it was always a challenge every week to try to find a meaningful activity for 12, 13, 14-year-old boys to do, certainly when it didn't have a screen to do with it, right? So
Right.
um and so when we were sitting in some of our church meetings, we were going through things that the church had, events that were planned, as well as areas that we were helping the community and specifically families in the community. And Kimberly's a small town community. I mean, it was only 4,000 people. I graduated with 69 people in my grade. It was pretty
Yeah.
small community.
That's
And
all.
yeah, and so when I heard about, they started going through this family that they were helping. The father had some mental health issues, and the mom was the bus driver, and they actually lived in a section of the town. If you can imagine, my town's pretty small, a section of the town that I didn't even know existed.
Mm.
And they were talking about how they're helping them, and just in passing, someone mentioned, yeah, we're helping them with foods and rides, and the kids don't have beds and things of that. And I kind of like it didn't hit me right at
Mm.
first until I was like, wait a minute, did you just say the kids don't have any beds? And they're like, yeah, they're sleeping on the floor. And I tell you what, man, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I just was like,
Yeah,
wait a
one
minute.
thing is an adult sleeping on the floor, and that sucks. And obviously, we don't want anybody sleeping on the floor, but a whole other thing is a kid sleeping on the floor, man.
Oh yeah, and I've slept on the floor, especially
Yeah.
camping. You sleep on the floor, you sleep on the ground. It's not the most comfortable thing to do, but and that's what hit me, I think, Alex, is I was like, man, day in and day out, are you kidding me? Like
Yeah.
that would be horrible. And for kids, they don't, certainly every kid's got a bed. And so I don't know, it just really hit me. And so that night I went home and I got thinking, hey, wait a minute. And you got to understand, like I'm no carpenter. I'm not unfamiliar with the drill and a saw, but I'd never built pieces of furniture before in my life. But I did enjoy it, and I thought, here's a great opportunity to get an Xbox controller out of these boys' hands and let's put a drill and a sander in it. Let's teach them how to do something and hopefully they'll enjoy it, especially for a cause like this. And so I went home that night and just so excited. Went down and my daughter had a bunk bed, and so I was like measuring it out and figuring out what pieces of wood we wanted. It was a fun activity for me. And then it came along Wednesday night, and I thought, well, okay, we'll see how these boys react. And so I told them what we're doing, and so they came over, and we just started going to work on trying to figure out. I mean, I kind of had it already figured out, but I told the boys what to do and how to do it, and you know what? For a couple of days in a row they enjoyed it. I mean, they smiles on their faces. We had a good time. It was a good opportunity to teach these kids,
And
the value
I
of
think, yeah,
things.
they value it even more. They worked on their own
Yeah. Oh,
project,
absolutely.
it's not like they just went and bought it or was given to them. Like they took it into their own hands and built it. That I think
That's
that's a
right.
huge life lesson early on.
Oh, it is, and I think we miss out on those great opportunities, especially for our own kids. And
Yeah.
that's what kind of landed in me is so we built this bed. I had to stay back and it's the middle of, well, I should say it's the beginning of December. So about winter starting, and I had to stay back and clean my garage. And the kids and their parents and the other leaders went and delivered this bed. So I didn't get to see the fruits of our labors there, but afterwards, the next day at church, they talked about how amazing it was. And the parents came up and said, hey, thank you. The kids had a great time, but the experience of delivering a bed to a child was just amazing. And I'm sitting there going, gosh darn it, I missed out probably on the best part, you
Right.
know? But then, this was the changing point for me, So when I came home, and you got to understand, like in my life, and I tell people, I don't know what a midlife crisis is. We always talk about that over here, but I was about 35 at the time, and I don't know, I wasn't unhappy in my job, but I wasn't being fulfilled. I wasn't fulfilled in school. I wasn't fulfilled really in church, and
That's
and
where the change came, right? You had the good job. You noticed
great,
that this was an opportunity. It wasn't exactly where you wanted to stay the rest of your life, and you saw it as an opportunity to do something good, and also something
exactly.
that fulfilled
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I
Nice.
just knew myself. No, I knew
Yeah.
enough about myself to go, I'm just not right. I'm just not feeling it. Like I was outside sales. I enjoyed working with people. I enjoyed that aspect. Of course, my church service working with boys, that was fun. But there was just something that just missed. I was missing, right? And I remember I came home, about a week after this experience, and I'm sitting on the couch and just watching TV, and my kids at the time were 10 and 7, and then I had a little 1-year old.
Yeah.
Anyways, a commercial came on for another Xbox game. I don't even remember the name of the game, but I remember my kids were just giddy about this, especially my 10-year-old. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to buy you another Xbox or Xbox game. I just had this experience of delivering a bed to a kid that didn't have one. And it just hit me. I wanted my kids to have the same experience. I wanted them to feel the joys of service and serving others, and of course, appreciate the things that they had. So there was this small, and I call it my tiny moment in my brain when I was like, I had such a great experience. It filled me with the way that I wanted to be filled, this fulfillment. I got to get off the couch, and that, I tell people that 3 or 4 inches of stepping off the couch meant the world to me because I just got up. My desire to change was greater. My desire to act to change was greater than my desire to want to change,
Yeah.
which I think is important because we always want to change. Like I think we always want to do better. We always want to change the world, but until my desire to actually do something about it is greater, then it just stays a dream. And so I remember I
Correct.
popped. I popped off that couch, and everybody's like, "Where are you going, Dad?" And I'm like, "We got extra wood. I'm going to go build another bed, and gosh dang it, you're going to come and help me."
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We went out in the garage and built another bed. It was a super fun experience with my kids, and then eventually had some other friends come and help too, and it was just a real good bonding experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm sure that you had those great moments, but you also had challenges, right? Not
Oh,
everything is always going
100%.
to be uphill. What were the biggest challenges in the early days of Sleep in Heavenly Peace, and how did you overcome them?
So when we built that first bed, if my first challenge is I had no idea what to do with it. I mean, I didn't know child bedlessness was a thing, right? It's just I stumbled upon it one in one meeting, and so someone recommended that I put it on Facebook, and I was like, I'm not
Like
much.
Facebook Marketplace or just
Yeah,
like
like a mark,
yeah,
like a well, it was
barter.
like a buy sell trade, yeah,
Yeah,
marketplace
yeah.
type thing. And I think this is
Barter.
back when they just kind of started them, and I wasn't much of a Facebook guy. I did, I posted a few pictures of my fishing sturgeon and stuff like that. But anyways, I said, okay, fine, we'll throw it up there, and kind of figured we'd get a bunch of people that want a free bed, right? And although we did get a little bit of that, what was pretty fascinating, two things happened is I realized there was a bunch of friends of mine that wanted to help. I mean, just people out of the woodwork, people I graduated with 20 years before I hadn't talked to come out and said, man, I want to help. What can I do? Blah, blah, blah. I thought that was pretty cool. And then I started hearing the stories of some of these families and these kids. And I realized, oh my gosh, that this is a bigger problem than I realized.
Yeah.
And then I went on my first delivery. And Alex, let me tell you something, man. You can see it, you can hear about it, you can watch videos on it. But when you deliver your first bed, or when you deliver a bed to a child that's never had one, and that was my story. Haley, she lived about 30 minutes away. Her and her mom had been sleeping in her car, the backseat of her mom's car. That's the only bed she's known. They were homeless. Their mom was struggling. They just had finally got a house. And so that's when we jumped. A friend of mine told me about it, and I'm like, oh, this is
Yeah.
great. This is exactly what I wanted to do. And so we went to Haley's house, and when I walked into the house, it was empty. I mean, there wasn't anything in it. There was
Like
a
furniture, yeah, like the furniture, yeah. Yeah.
no furniture, no table. The only thing that was in the house was a hot plate, and it had
Cooking, yeah.
it was a hot plate sitting on a milk carton, if you will, and it had a can of soup on it, and that was it. And so, but I'd never seen poverty. I'd never seen homelessness from the eyes of a 6-year-old. And that
Oh,
that
yeah. Yeah.
really got me. I was like, oh my gosh, like number one, she was super happy. She finally had a house. She finally had a room, It
Right.
wasn't a
Yeah.
bedroom because there was no bed in it, but
Yeah.
um and she pulled me back in her room, and she was showing me all her toys and stuff like that people had given them. And you can imagine what the room looked like. I mean, it was holes in the carpet and, tears in the wallpaper and all this stuff. But what got me the most is I walked in this room and I looked over in the corner, and there was just a pile of clothes. It was a little nest, and you could see where she slept. Like she slept on her clothes. She'd come home from school, take her school clothes off, put her PJs on, and sleep on her clothes. And I mean, I just about lost it. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is how this little girl has been sleeping. Either it's in the backseat of a car or on the floor. So we were really excited when we started bringing in pieces of her bed. And you could see,
Right.
I mean, she was a really happy girl, but when she realized what it was that we were bringing her, she erupted. Like she came over and hugged us, she hugged the bed. She even kissed the bed. I'd never seen a child, kiss a bed before. It
Yeah, that's
was,
so
it was,
cute. Yeah.
it was incredible. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And the feeling there was incredible. And
I
then
would
when
have been
you're,
crying.
oh, dude, tell you what, man,
I
I,
would have been
I
crying my
like,
ass off, bro.
I'd like to think I'm a tough dude here, but it was hard. But I tell you
Wow.
when I lost it when I looked up, and here's this mom, and I was raised by a single mom too, so it just really struck me just perfectly, right? 6 years,
Perfect.
yeah, 6 years of tears just pouring down her face, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I know what each one of those tears kind of feels like. My mom struggled with 5 kids and by herself, and my gosh, it really. So on the way home, me and my buddy Jordan that came with me, we really didn't say much to each other. I mean, it was just so speechless is the best word. It just
Yeah,
couldn't.
like you were reflecting almost like all the right back and just like remembering and
Oh, absolutely.
soaking it all in.
Well, and it was the emotion, it was the feeling, it was a mixture of a complete sadness, but super happy, and oh my gosh, where is she now? Sleeping in the bed. I mean, it was just all these things. And I remember this, and I verbally said it. No kid is going to sleep on the floor in my town if I have anything to do with it, right? And little did I know how big that problem or how big that statement really was going to be. But that's how I felt. It was almost like I was pissed off, like I was angry. I was like, "Gosh, dang it!" And what happened then, Alex, is I went from the typical college football Saturday afternoon watcher, fisherman, hunter kind of guy to all I wanted to do was build beds. All of that stuff came second nature, right?
Yeah.
Or I should say, took a back seat to building beds, and so that's what we started doing is just building beds.
So many people start passion projects, right? Maybe it takes off, maybe they help a few people. but few scale it the way you did, right?
Mhm.
What key decisions helped you scale to 350 chapters across 4 countries? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what can we learn from that experience?
Absolutely. First of all, it takes some dedication. I've talked to a lot of people that want to start nonprofits, and I'm like, listen, it's got to be a passion like you've never felt before because it's not easy, asking for money and it's long hours. It's a lot of effort. I still had a full-time job, and I did that for almost 10 years. I mean, I should say 6 years. Um, full-time job, and it caused headaches in my job. At one point my employer finally had to come to me, and I don't blame him at all. He had to come to me and say, "Hey, Luke, listen, I was the vice president of sales and marketing. I was going to take over the company. My career was set." And he says, "You need to make a decision. You either need to stop this charity stuff and get back to work, or you got to be done with us." And
Yeah.
the hard thing, I mean, that's not an easy decision, but then it kind of was an easy decision. I knew where my passion was. I had no idea how I was going to make money, but I couldn't step away from this. And thank God that it's turned out the way it has, because of that. Now we've been able to grow what we have, and a lot of that growth, most of that growth, Alex, came from having great people. I live by the motto of managing style, if you will, that I hire the best people I think, and then let them do their job. Get out of their way, let them feel ownership of what they're doing. And I had a lot of friends, just luckily a lot of friends that were in a profession that is what helped us grow. One was in marketing, one was in IT, one was in finance, and and they have a heart just as big as mine for the mission. And so, when you give them an assignment, a clear, concise assignment, and say go, step out of their way and let them go. And it I saw how these friends of mine, they just huddled around their responsibilities. They dove in, and we got great results from it. It didn't mean we didn't have to grow. In
Yeah.
fact, some of the hardest things, and other founders can tell you, can attest to this. You know, as a founder, you feel like you're responsible for everything. And that is a difficult place to realize I can't, because I become the bottleneck, right? And I think some of the biggest challenges for me personally is giving up some of those decisions, and I look back now, even where I'm sitting right now, my role in Sleeping on the Peace is the founder. So I do a lot of PR work and things of that nature.
Yeah.
There's meetings going on all the time that I have no idea about. And at first that was a really hard pill to swallow. But now, you get to sit back and see that, hey, we're in 4 countries. We build almost 90,000 beds a year. I mean, it's a big endeavor,
That's
and
a wild amount
I'm
of
no
beds.
longer the bottleneck.
Well, it's good that you allow people to do their work
Yeah,
because, I mean, if you get in your own way, then you're not helping other people and then you're not helping yourself, right?
that's right.
Um,
Exactly right.
Question for you in regards to development, child development, right? I'm sure that there's a lot of things that come with children, with children that don't sleep on beds, a lot of things that affect maybe their development, their health, their well-being. Like, is there anything that stood out to you or anything that you've learned that, really does affect kids on a long term by
Oh, absolutely.
not sleeping on beds?
Absolutely.
Besides the obvious, like, back pains or any types of pains like that. Any other development issues?
100%. In fact, there's been some studies that lack of sleep in younger adolescent children can cause some autism. There's a lot of studies out there. How the sad thing is there is not a lot of statistics on child bedlessness itself. When I first looked into this, when we thought about being a charity, I'm like, well, certainly other charities are doing this. No, there was one charity in North Carolina called Kids Beds for Kids, excuse me.
That's very good.
And it was the only one that I knew of. And so it was a problem that wasn't being addressed, and it was a problem that no one really knew about. No statistics, nothing. And the only statistic still to this day that we have is what Sleep in Ugly Peace has put together, which is roughly 3% or greater of the total population represents children sleeping in really uncomfortable situations. So if you got a town of 100,000 people, there's 3,000 kids sitting there. And what we found is it's far more than just a bed. We of course, a kid that gets a good night's sleep They do much better in school. Their moods are much better, so they participate more. They have a sense of
Mm,
ownership. If you could imagine, a lot of these kids that we deliver, they don't have a bed. They probably don't have a dresser. They probably don't have a TV. They probably don't have a lot of possessions that is their own, and sometimes they don't have a lot of friends because they don't have sleepovers. They're embarrassed. They don't, it's a really difficult situation for them to accept more social interaction with other kids of their age. And so
yeah.
when we deliver a bed, we make sure, listen, this is your bed, little Sam. This is your
Yeah.
bed. This is
Nobody's
not
gonna
your
take it.
parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yours, and you get to do with what you want. And when they see something like that, and the other thing too is they see this complete stranger walk in their house, and these little 6, 7 year olds, they're always hiding behind their mom. They're really nervous and stuff, but not once have I ever started putting this bed together, and this little kid, you can see their demeanor just change once they realize what's going on. You become their best friend, right? And it'll
Yeah.
be 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they dive, kid you not, they dive in a bed and go to sleep. They've never slept in a bed before, some of them. Some of them never slept on a pillow, if you believe
Yeah.
that. And so it brings so much confidence to them, and that's just the child. I think back of that mother that was
The
sitting there
relief.
crying.
Yeah. The relief. The relief.
Oh yeah, can you imagine? I thought
Yeah.
about my own kids, and she doing the best she could. Food, clothing, shelter. Those are the three big ones. They try to, you try to take care of. But beds, unfortunately, a bed's a luxury for some of these kids, which is a terrible thing nowadays. It shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And these parents are just working hard, and they're probably embarrassed, and they're worried about their kids. Here's this mom worried 6 years, how my kid's not getting a good night's sleep. I know that. I'm doing the best I can. It just is such a relief for the family. And a lot of times the kids are sharing beds with their siblings, or even sleeping with their parents. Now the parents aren't getting a good night's sleep, and they go to work, and it's just a vicious cycle.
Vicious cycle. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for and listen, a vicious cycle for something that can be solved very easily, and that's where, Saturday afternoons and fishing and stuff like that just didn't seem that important to me anymore, especially when you see and solve something like child bedlessness. It changes you.
How has during your journey, across this journey, how has your definition of success evolved?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Back when Sleep and Emily Peace really started, well, back when it started, really, I measured my success. I think, like a lot of people, especially to my own peers and to my own friends and things of that nature, by the number of zeros I had behind my paycheck, by the number of toys I had in my garage, which is a terrible, terrible way to look at things. But that's just how I grew up. You went to college, you got a good job, you were
Yeah.
successful. What is successful? The amount of money you make. Well, when I started Sleeping Emily Peace, I cared so less about that, more and more. And really the success I measure now is the imprint I make in this world I live in, right? How when we die, we're not taking any of this crap with us, right? So
Oh, yeah.
it's like I just want to know when I leave here, I left it better than when I showed up, right? Because of something that I did. And that was and is now the measure of my success.
So that was the my next and last question was going to be, how do you want to be remembered? I think you already just touched on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think like everybody, that's it. I just want to be remembered. I want to be remembered that I made some differences. Luke Mickelson did his best that he could to change the lives of others. I tell people, well, you want to find true happiness, true joy. Sometimes you got to stop looking at yourself and look at someone else, see how you can help them. Your problems, they don't go away, but I guarantee you they're not going to seem near as horrible or heavy as they seem right now. And that was my experience. I'm a worrier. I'm an entrepreneur. So of course, us entrepreneurs out there, we worry about everything, right? You got to plan for everything, and
Yeah.
be prepared and all this. And that people don't realize, the boss, the owner, they have these weights that are just sitting on their back all the time. And you're worried about employees, you're worried about the bottom lines, you're worried about stock, inventory, all these things, right? Well, sometimes it is nice to offload those, and you can offload those by I have found I offload those by by serving others and helping others, and in this case, what better way to help others than a child that doesn't have a bed? And I am followed by thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of volunteers over the last 3 or 4 years, especially who have felt the same thing, have voiced the same thing, that joy comes from serving others, and not thinking about your problems or yourself all the time. I mean, you do have to think about yourself, right, and your family,
Yeah.
but when you can take those moments, those tiny moments of life, and step away from yourself, put your mind, your matter, your talents towards helping someone else, man, it brings a lot of joy and fulfillment.
Luke, I really appreciate you sharing your experience, man. This has been really cool.
Oh,
And
thanks, man.
for me and for everyone listening who is interested and wants to learn more, where can we find you and where can we find more about the business? The hustle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, if you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on LinkedIn. I don't hide. I'm Luke Mickelson, whatever there. Type in SHP, you'll find me. But more importantly, if you want to learn more about Sleep in Heavenly Peace, how you can get involved, how you can help this movement, go to shpbeds.org. And the best thing, the best way I set this up, Alex, listen, I'm a farm kid from Idaho. I started a charity that I didn't even know what a charity. I mean, I knew what a charity was, but I didn't know how to run one.
Yeah.
And I wanted to set it up in a way that was the most transparent. It was exactly what I wanted to see in a charity, which is when you donate your money, your time, your materials, you donate it to your community and it stays in your community, right? So when you
Yeah.
donate $1, we only pull 10% to finance it. You still got overhead like any other business, but 90% of your dollar stays in your community. The sheets and the mattresses and the things that you donate stay in your community because it's a community problem. And your listeners, yourself, you can help in a lot of ways. Raise awareness, go on shpbeds.org, find your local chapter, see how you can help. And of course, being a nonprofit, it costs $300 to put these beds together, assemble them. We fully furnish them, mattress sheets, the whole 9 yards, and then deliver them. You can sponsor a child, become what we call a bunkhead member, where a twenty to $30 plus donation a month provides a bed every year for a child. Or you can donate right to your chapter, and of course that's how the rubber meets the road, right? That's where we make our biggest indention. And if there's a person out there that's loves this and wants to get behind it and there's not a chapter, you can start one. I mean, all of our chapter presidents are unpaid local people that just have a heart for giving back, and certainly a heart for helping children. You can go to our website, shpbeds.org, and learn how to start a chapter yourself as well. So
Hey guys, you heard the info. If you're listening on YouTube, check out the links on the bio. If you're listening on any streaming platform, go to the episode page. You'll find everything. If not, you could go to hustleinspireshustle.com/podcast, find this episode, and you'll find everything we talked about today. Thank you so much, everybody. Catch you on the next episode.